Welcome to News Game Plus. I'm Dermie, and I'm here again with New Game Plus executive producer Jason O'Callaghan, and we're not grounded anymore. How cool is that?
We're not grounded-ish. So after this, we're recording this at about 12:30
Yeah, it's
in
past my
the night.
bedtime.
Yeah, which is weird because you're in program. You're always the only other person I knew that was up at 5 a.m. like me. But
I'm getting old.
yeah, Grandpa's getting old.
I won't
But
be
no,
winning any
after
top 30 under 30 awards. I tell you that.
yeah, top 60 under 60. I'll be after
Ooh.
this podcast. I'll be heading to Coles to grab myself some dinner. And that'll be great, and I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool. There you go. There's an insight into the life of a video game journo. So,
Well, look, I like to just prefer myself as like a night cretin, and that's I'm happy with that.
yeah, no, I didn't mean to insult you by saying you're a video game journo.
Correct. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
All right, cool. Well,
yeah.
I was going to say, let's get into the video game news. Otherwise, we spend 10 minutes talking about the latest politics.
We can't do
podcast.
politics. We haven't got time. We just don't. After everything's happened today, we don't have time.
I'm going to fall asleep. But anyway, let's go with this. All right, first news. Now, let's open with the PlayStation 5 because the pricing came out and we actually were wrong. I went higher than you did, and we both missed out. But yeah, how did they do that? Did they have a panic attack when they saw the Xbox?
I think so. I'm like, there was rumors that they had like emergency meetings, kind of like, oh, holy shit, they've gone lower than we thought, or they've put it's in a hard spot. I think I'm surprised Microsoft went as high as they did. I think Microsoft went $50 higher than I thought they would, and I think Sony went about $100 lower than I thought they would, just based on the way they were treating the generation. And there's rumors. Look, I will think 4chan is a cesspit for a lot of things, but occasionally something comes out of it that makes you go, yeah, okay. And the rumors were that of the IGN. In America, the fulfillment system they had, the pre-order system that they had, maybe 1% of the console allocation was the discless version. So the rumor is that the discless one was made to kind of tackle and to be able to advertise a lower price point, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Yep.
So the lower price point for us, I believe, for the discless one is $599, so $600.
Well, it
and
shouldn't make a big difference. I can't imagine Blu-ray drives in bulk cost that much for Sony. I mean, don't they make that stuff? And
they get a licensing fee back on it.
Yeah, they pay themselves for the Blu-ray license. So I can't imagine they make a big difference.
Jared in our Discord brought up a good point the other day, and he said that we were talking like, because he brought this point up, we were discussing this, was how even if you buy a discless one, like considering how much they charge you for digital games, and there's not going to be any sales on any of the digital games for a long time, you'd make that up in 3 or 4 like full price titles. You know what I mean? Like the $150 gap, the gap between the $79 you'll pay at JB Hi-Fi and say the $130 I'll charge you on thing, you'd make it up in 2 or 3, 4 games. So it's not worth it kind of from that sense. But yeah, no, it was interesting. I was surprised that the PS5 came for $750, which is line price with the Series X. So we are talking obviously Australian prices. But yeah, no, they're line priced across. Xbox did drop the price of the Series S, the slimmer box, the kind of the intro box in Japan. They dropped that by about $50 / about 3,500 yen, to make that a little bit more competitive. And apparently all of the Xbox units that have been allocated to Japan have actually pre-sold, which even they were surprised at.
No, they were very excited because Microsoft announced that Japan is their fastest growing install base, which is,
yes.
I mean, yeah, the difference between 1 and 2 is that's double.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, it's 100% improvement on previous figures.
I don't know how exciting that is to them, because they honestly they weren't selling many Xboxes in Japan before now.
Look, it was one of those things where the problem with it is kind of two-pronged. Number one, it's not homegrown. There was none of those games. Like 360, you had Lost Odyssey, you had Blue Dragon, you had these games that appealed to the Japanese market, so it was a bit of an easier sell. But even then, like, they didn't really commit to the bit. Then Xbox One comes out and it's the shooter console, and they the always online stuff and all this very unuser friendly stuff. And the Japanese will put up with a lot when it comes to being consumers, but there was never enough interest to hold them in the first place. And then Sony comes out with all the Japanese games, Bob's your uncle. So for them to say, yeah, obviously they've had a big increase is like, well, I mean, like good for them, but at the same time, yeah, like 100% extra on one is two. So yeah.
I'm just getting latest breaking news there from Luke while I'm recording. Excuse the beep. All right, cool. Let's look at the PlayStation 5, because I think we knew what Microsoft were doing. We know the plans for the Xbox, and the Xbox now is incremental upgrades, or not incremental, but they're effectively like buying a new.
It's an ecosystem. You're buying into an ecosystem.
Yeah, and you're buying a new graphics card. Effectively, you're buying a new graphics card each time. And I think that's the best way to think of it. You're upgrading your CPU and your graphics card each time you buy a new Xbox. And that's how people need to sort of view those now. And Sony's been talking generations. It's all about generations, all that, right? But I think the signs are there that they've gone exactly the same path. And once again, they're talking shit because the PS5, well, okay, let's go with the backward compatibility first. It'll emulate apparently around 99% of PlayStation 4 games, but no PlayStation 1, 2, or 3 games. So I'm smelling an upgraded PS4.
Yeah. So it's funny because that was always that kind of the charge was leveled at Microsoft, and with the way that Microsoft have really doubled down on backwards compatibility and the way that it works. I mean, playing old Xbox, I got Armed and Dangerous on Gold the other day, and if you haven't played Armed and Dangerous, I reckon you would like it, even if it is a hard game to play. It's very British comedy. Is like it's real overtures of British comedy.
Really, because British comedy was what we were raised on in Australia.
Yeah,
people forget we were raised on British comedy in Australia, and that's why Australian humour is so different to American humour.
And that's why Americans can't understand. Like, you can take the piss out of a Yank in a heartbeat because they think you're being serious. Like you have to flagpole any jokes, and so you just take the piss out of them because they make it easy. And so to bring it back to the thing is like that's an Xbox original game, and if I just fire it up, cool, takes about 15 seconds for the emulation to kick in, and then there we are, and we're playing Xbox original games, and then I feel like playing Saints Row 2. Chuck on the 360 game, comes up with the whole thing done, and I'm playing an Xbox 360 game, and for Sony for a long time they didn't want that to be the battleground. That's why they've kept it close to their chest and only recently come out and admitted this. They didn't want that to be a point of differentiation because, like I've said to a bunch of parents, is like, we were discussing again in our Discord, and if you want to join, there's links all over the place on our socials and stuff to jump into our Discord. Was I was trying to explain to the guys, I'm like, yeah, so you're looking at it from seasoned gamer perspective who love your Japanese games and love the PS4 exclusives and stuff. But if you're a mum and a dad, holy shit, like the Xbox Series S is such good value. All your controllers work. You can play all the upscale games that you already own. Anything that you buy on new is going to work on it. So you buy Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it works on it. You buy whatever, it works on it. If you've already bought the game on the Xbox One and then you buy Series S, you get the upgraded version of it for free. Like the value proposition is insane. It's just fucking insane. It's Nintendo tier value proposition as far as play your old games on it, and it goes beyond that because you go generational games and it goes back to it. So for me, I don't like. It's not a hard sell for parents. And especially as like a secondary streaming box and stuff like that. Like, I think that's where Series S is going to kind of flourish, kind of like what the Vita TV tried to be, but kind of failed to be. Is yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that there's no emulation, but yeah, I'm surprised that they've admitted it this far out. So.
Well, even with the Switch having emulators on the Switch now for Mario Galaxy and Mario Sunshine and Mario 64, which interesting where that goes in the future. But look, the other value proposition for the Xbox, and this really does need to be looked at, is the Game Pass. Right now, Game Pass on Xbox will soon include EA's whatever it was. I'm not too fussed about it, but it is extra value. So EA's version of Game Pass. The name escapes me. So, but the and you pay like what $15 a month for all you can eat games, basically. Now that's something that the Sony has said that they've got their what's it called? They've got a PlayStation. Plus or PlayStation Now. Anyway, PlayStation Plus collection, right? Now, the PlayStation Plus collection looks like it's got some really, really, really good games in. Well, obviously, all PlayStation 4 games. And if I was a PlayStation person, I would jump on that because it looks nice. But they have said that a Game Pass model for them is unsustainable. Now, the other news that has come out or has been promoted for a while, and some people have had mixed reaction to, is this idea that games in the future are going to be $70 US or over $100 Australian, and
well,
that'll be
we've seen EB has listed them at 125. So for
125, yeah. This idea that game development's getting expensive to go up now. And tell you what, if you're looking at that and you're comparing that to $15 a month for a Game Pass subscription, it's a real easy choice. And I've said to many people with consoles, you touched on this earlier, but you spend way more when you talk about what Jared said on Discord. You spend way more on games for a console than you do on the console. You could buy 5 consoles to have all around your house. You're still going to spend more on games over the life of that console. So unless you're one of those people that buys 2 games, it's a Wii or something, right? But the attach rate's normally a bit higher for an Xbox or a PlayStation with a serious gamer. So the cost is in the games. So if you've got Game Pass, the cost isn't that high. If you're paying $125 Australian per game, that adds up real quick.
And so that was always the value proposition for Game Pass. Is realistically like, it costs you $150 odd a year. I think it might be a little bit more than that. But that's 2 of their mainline titles. So let's say you've got you want to play Halo, for example. So Halo, you don't really care about other Xbox exclusives, but you want to play Halo. Oh, but hang on, Yakuza now has a 6-month exclusivity window on Game Pass on Xbox. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so I get that. And then there's rumors now that Assassin's Creed is going to start doing it on PC as well. So the Ubisoft PC platform, their service game, is going to tie into Game Pass. And if that does, I agree that there are problems then with media diversity and stuff like that. But at the same time, it starts to become that thing of, well, why would I play on the other platform?
Well, I tell you, because I've been convinced, and it's probably been hinted, or not even hinted on this podcast for a long time, that Microsoft has been calling all the shots in this release cycle. Okay, now I tell you, Game Pass coming in at $15 a month. This is Australian prices. I think it's about that. I might be wrong, but it's around that. Sony saying they can't do it, and the price is going up. Now they always say the consoles launch at a loss, and companies say the game. The Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, or not Nintendo, they don't, but they have to sell their console at a loss and then make the money back on games. And that's what this smells like here. It smells like Sony here, and I'm going to put it's fair in their court. Basically, because Microsoft lives off their subscription service, it smells like Sony's saying, yeah, fine, you can have your $650 PlayStation 5, but you're paying $125 per game. We're getting our money back one way or another. And this whole debate seems to me like purely a Sony debate about the price of games.
And look, it is that thing of, more and more, I feel like, I've said it on multiple episodes of this podcast. I feel like the brains trust has left Sony. I think when House and Layden left, they took so much experience and so much, they were the ones smart enough to capitalize on Microsoft's fumble. They were the ones smart enough to pay the money for Kojima. That all these things were true under their reign. And now that Jim Ryan's in, you know what I mean? Jim Ryan's turning around saying that this is the strongest, by far the strongest launch lineup that the PS5 has ever had. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I haven't got to it yet. Well, just one more before we get to launch lineup, because that makes me laugh. Now we also talk about games, because obviously in all these discussions, Nintendo does the same thing, right? So they're in their own bubble there. But the other one was the other quick news. Probably don't have to talk too much, but Microsoft buying ZeniMax or Bethesda.
Yes, huge. That is of all the things we called on this podcast. Of all the tea leaves we've read and all the things we've attempted to soothsay, did you pick Bethesda getting bought by fucking Microsoft? Holy crap. Who had that on their bingo card,
We talked about Kojima Productions. We talked about a
Yep.
bunch of them that Sony were rumored to buy, and then
Yep.
out of left field, up pops Microsoft with, and we are talking the Wolfenstein, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, and some others I don't care about, but they're the big ones.
Like we said on the
yeah,
we
go.
said on the TV record, you know, this means now that Microsoft owns Bethesda, so they own the Fallout property. They own In Exile, who made the first two Fallout games, the isometric ones, and they own Obsidian, which made New Vegas, the good ones. And so realistically, like, yeah, they could split it into East-West franchises. They could say, okay, Bethesda, you handle the East Coast stuff. You want to do Boston, you want to do it, you do those, and then we have Obsidian do New Vegas 2, or whatever, or we have In Exile do like a top-down game set in that universe. And I think that's been the ongoing meme, but like Doom Eternal is set to come onto Game Pass in October now, as October 1st, as a
Very
result
soon.
of the purchase. So
Yep.
like it's such a big purchase. Like like
It is
no one
big.
no one called it. No one called it. I don't care who you are. There wasn't even a rumor about this one.
Nah,
I keep my ear to the. Again, you can pretty usually tell when there's like, okay, so there might be something to this, or there might be whatever. Or it's okay. That makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, but who called Bethesda? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
No, well, they spent $7.5 billion US buying Bethesda. It was out of left field. It is some massive franchises. Whether they keep them as exclusive or not, that'll be a question. It's 7.5 billion to make them. Like when they spent 2 billion on Minecraft, a lot of the money was going to be made back on merchandising, so they could still
yes.
put it on everything because they just want heaps of kids buying little fluffy creepers and stuff at EB.
Oh well,
But
to be fair, yeah, they still make it. I mean, and the kind of the three things that I think you need to understand for context on this as well. They paid 8.5 billion for Skype, so it was still cheaper for them than the acquisition of Skype, which they then ran into the ground anyway, because Skype is garbage now. Um, I
now,
think it's $0.5 million, so it's $500 million less than than Disney paid for both Marvel and
Star Wars,
Star Wars.
yeah,
So you know what I mean. So
they run into
already,
the
yes.
ground
So rough, yeah, yeah. But the third one, like the other main one, is that they've said that they will leave basically Bethesda as close as they can. It just means that they would obviously have some sway over licensing. But as far as publishing games on other platforms, they're still open to the idea, which to me is smart because you go, all right, cool. Like you can have the new, like Deathloop. Not even 2 weeks ago was on that Sony special being announced as a PlayStation 5 exclusive on console. And then, yeah, like, so it's okay, so it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive on console that is now owned by Microsoft. I don't think it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive anymore. And if it is, it's a timed one at best. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no way that they pass up a game like that, which is perfect Game Pass fodder. Like, the one thing that the modern era has given us as well is that B games are a thing again. Like, there is such a thing as you don't have to make a AAA title and you don't have to make pure indie wank. You know what I mean? Not that I'm against indie wank. I love a good bullshit indie game, but like,
good Indian
um,
good wank.
yeah, yeah. That's a different thing. But like, you can make these great titles that are B titles. They're not AAA games. They're not like headliners, but they're solid fodder. You know what I mean? Like they're just good games, and I think that's where Microsoft like stands to capitalize the most on stuff like Game Pass as a result of this. And again, more and more, I just feel like Microsoft are just controlling the conversation at the moment. Nothing Sony is like Sony are coasting on the success of the PS4. And don't get me wrong, they nailed it on the PS4. They were smart enough to capitalize where they needed to. They had the right heads in charge. All that kind of stuff is true. But I just don't think that brains trust is there, and I think that brains trust has flown the coop. And I don't know what that means
I wonder,
for the next gen.
I wonder who they're currently trying to buy out of desperation. The thing with 7.5 billion now, no respect, no disrespect to the developers of those franchises, but you know, with 7.5 billion just to get the stuff right. And the games themselves, yeah, look, I think it'd be a choice if you can buy the new improved high res Skyrim on your PS5 for $125, you can have it on Game Pass. But I don't think that makes up for 7. So yeah, I don't know what they're after. 7.5 billion is a lot of money.
Yeah, like yes and no. Like I mean, I think
Yeah, go.
look, I think if you look at it from the point of view of like, okay, so 7.5 billion spread over all those titles. Each one sells about 5 million. So 5 million by usually what, $100 Australian or $50-$60 American. They'll sell 4-5 million of each, right? So
Yeah.
that's 300-400 million, right? It's not awful. It's not obviously not not that thing, but it also means that if they decide that they're going to expand those franchises into movies or TV or whatever the case may be, they get the rights to that as well. But
Yeah.
and the other interesting side of it is it does come with the studios included. So like Todd's is staying. He's released an email saying that he's staying there, which is a shame. But like
The memes
yeah.
are still alive.
Say again. The meme's
So
still
the
alive. Yeah.
memes are still alive. That's good. Can't kill the memes. You said 5. You said 5 million copies, right? 5 million copies at $125, and I know they don't get
Yeah.
$125. It's retail. There's all other costs. That's still only $62.5 million.
Yeah.
So it's still a long way from 7.5 billion.
Yeah, like I said, I think from their point of view, it is very much the long-term investment. Like it's very much, like everyone assumes they're going to sell a GTA. I mean, you look at the money that GTA has made for Rockstar, so much so that they'll never make another GTA. You know what I mean? Like they don't need to. People
Does
still
look like
pay. They still pay stupid money to play that game, and I don't know. I just don't understand it. But que sera, sera, to each their own. I'm into like I hope it means that we do see like an Obsidian Fallout. I don't hold my breath, of course, because they want to do Outer Worlds, but it'd be nice to see them do
Oh, does that come
that
with it?
again. Yeah, because it's a yeah.
Nice.
Because they already own Obsidian. They bought Obsidian a while ago, and so yeah, so they bought them out. Has to be probably about a year ago now, and
Cool.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So we live in a world now where the same company owns the Fallout series and Obsidian.
Yeah, well, actually, and Todd Howard can hang out with Notch and
Yeah, yeah,
dollars on cocaine and hookers,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
whatever Notch does with his money now.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, like, like say what you want about Notch, and he is a Gronk, but like, when he made the bet of like, it's such and such. If I'm wrong, I'll deplatform myself. Yeah, go on, and he did. He just left Twitter. That was it.
Oh,
Just
look,
go on.
I think on that Notch thing, I think people are being unfair. I think for what you have to take him in total, and
Yeah,
what Minecraft his product did. I know it wasn't only him, but what his product Minecraft did for gaming for young kids. You can't just dismiss that so easily with he
yeah,
tweeted a few things, he acted like an idiot. He changed young people's lives. I saw
yeah.
with the amount they
I,
played Minecraft, they don't know who Notch is, they don't know anything he does, they don't even give a shit. But geez,
it's
Minecraft
yeah.
is such a big
Art
part of
and
their life.
artist. Do you know what I mean? Like it's the argument of like art and artist. Like they're
What
going through
what
it with JK
what
as well
Notch
at the
did
moment.
Yeah, what Notch did is what is one of the most amazing things for gaming, and we will see it as these kids come through.
Yeah,
He solidified video gaming for this
yeah,
generation that's going to come through that are now getting into their teens. He really did.
yeah.
People don't understand the.
Yeah, never meet your heroes. You know what I mean? Like yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, I
yeah.
remember when I met those guys from that video game show. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And we're doing Sony now. So to me, Sony, so far, I've put my head out there and said Sony's effects, the PS5 is effectively a faster PS4, which is why they're excited about the thing. They're about the hard drive speed. The Xbox is killing them on Game Pass and the offering and the value. And Sony's still trying to play this game with we're a launch console, it's generations, blah 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 blah. And one of the wild claims that you actually told me earlier, the PS5 lineup. Who's Jim Ryan?
He's the
Jim Ryan?
CEO, I'm pretty certain.
Oh yeah, SIE president and CEO Jim Ryan. He's
Yeah.
basically said the PS5 launch lineup of exclusives. is by far the strongest we've ever had. I think by we he means the consoles that he's actually been CEO. Because let's I know I love Sony's wild claims, but this is a wild one because I'm seeing Spider-Man Miles Morales. That's good, fine. Demon Souls remake. Okay, Sackboy, with a little big planet game,
good old Sackboy, yeah.
Yeah, and a bunch of shit. I'd like what?
Okay, so he said it's the best one they've ever had. So let me list off a bunch of titles that they've had. And because have you noticed he says in our launch window? So he's giving himself until March to get away with launch window.
Well,
right?
That includes Halo Infinite for the Xbox if we go that far out.
If we do exactly. So let me just throw off a list of titles to you, and you tell me what system it was on. Armored Core 2, Dead or Alive 2 Hardcore, Dynasty Warriors 2, Kessen, Madden NFL 2001, Ridge Racer 5, Smuggler's Run, Street Fighter EX3, Tekken Tag Tournament, Time Splitters, Unreal Tournament. Well, what system do you reckon that was the launch titles for in America?
Well, I know from Ridge Racer it's a PlayStation, and I'm going to get by the numbers the 2.
Correct. PlayStation 2. That was the PlayStation 2 launch in the US.
So it's not even the best PlayStation launch lineup.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's straight away he's telling pork pies. You know what I mean? Like that's just.
No, but that's not Sackboy. I mean, Sackboy in a remake.
It's no Sackboy, but yeah. And I think even like so you have a look at the launch of the PS3. Now the PS3 was notorious. They had Resistance, Motor Game, the car racing one, Motorstorm.
Shitty dragon game.
Yeah.
Kind of never really came out.
yeah. It had an NFL, like it had a Madden, and it had Ridge Racer 7. I mean, that was the Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer.
Yeah, never really been a fan of Ridge Racer, gotta say.
No,
but
I neither have I. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it. But more the point is like, like you even have a look at it at the PS4 launch. The PS4 launch. Hell, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Call of Duty Ghost, not the Call of Duty, Killzone Shadowfall, which was a good game. Tomb Raider Definitive. Yakuza Ishin in Japan. Like even it had.
It's still a better lineup.
Yeah. And I mean, okay. The thing to me that makes this guy so fucked in the head, right? Is I'll give you a list and you'll know it straight away, right? But for the people playing at home,
that is the PS3 lineup when it was like Little Big Planet and yeah. Anyway,
and look, like as much as I'd like to say, yeah, okay. So I'm going to throw out a list of titles and you're going to know it, but people at home might not. Okay, so here is the US launch of a particular gaming system. It had Daytona USA, Panzer Dragoon, Panzer Dragoon, and Virtua Fighter. Yeah.
Actually, let's not talk about on that particular console, that particular Daytona. But it was a big name, yes. Panzer Dragoon. Well, that's the giveaway.
Yeah. So that's the Sega Saturn. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's like, and you could argue the Dreamcast, especially the American Dreamcast launch, had some just amazing titles on there, like Blue Stinger, Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure, Power Stone.
I played the latest Soul Calibur, and it doesn't say Soul Still Burns, and it actually felt wrong. There's a good game, but it didn't say Soul Still Burns.
That is, it doesn't.
Respect your opponent and be nice. Yeah, get stuff. Soul Still Burns. What's this shit? Anyway, keep going.
A tale of swords and souls eternally retold. Yeah. But like, I mean, and it was that thing of like, obviously the difference now compared to back then was that there was a delay. There was a delay between the launch of it in, say, Japan and then America and then Europe, especially for Nintendo consoles. Like we're talking, they'd come out in Japan and then 18 months later.
What's the Nintendo launch lineup look like? Because I mean,
all right, so let's keep it American so that we can kind of have at least the big so we can have the big English speaking market.
The E3 announcements and shit like that. Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah, so let's go N64. So N64 had The only two
yeah.
launch titles that came out on N64 was Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. Now, that's not a huge list of titles, but Mario 64 was, as much as I don't like playing Mario 64, it was a revolutionary 3D game. Like, no one had done what they did at that point with a 3D game. American launch of the Super NES was Super
Actually,
Mario World.
Nintendo 64 is a really groundbreaking console because it showed me, with the graphics on there, the blurriness, it showed me what my eyes were going to be like in real life
Yeah.
20 years later.
Well, it was like what it's like living in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. It's just fog everywhere. Um,
My eyes
uh,
look like a Nintendo 64 now for everything. So,
yeah, nice.
when
But yeah, so Super Nintendo in America launched with Super Mario World, F-Zero, Pilot Wings, SimCity, and Gradius 3. Now that's a pretty good launch list as well. Like,
yep.
yeah, that's a pretty good launch list. GameCube, I think it was again Nintendo at that point they were doing the big three. So they had Luigi's Mansion. I'm pretty sure GameCube was Luigi's Mansion. Oh man, what else was it? There was another Luigi's Mansion, Wave Race, and I want to say the original Super Monkey Ball was the launch title.
Yeah.
There it is. So it's Super Monkey Ball, Super Monkey Ball, um, Luigi's Mansion, and Wave Race. And then in America, it had a bunch of extra stuff. So I mean, that release window wasn't too bad. It was September 14 in Japan, and it was May 3rd in Europe. By that time, obviously, it's got a little bit of thing to build up. But yeah, so that alone was really. So this is what I mean. This is why I'm sure Sony is going back towards doing these grand statements and things that they don't have to do, but they insist on doing. Like their new slogan is just I can't remember how stupid it was, but it was real stupid. It was to do with like it reminds me of Penis Thumb. It reminds me of PlayStation, the third place in a three console war. You know what I mean? Like it was yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, look, their marketing is always out there. In fact, if anyone gets bored, go to newgameplus.tv and look for a thing we did, myself and Oz did for Old Game Plus, where we went through Sony's outrageous ads in the past, and some of them are just, some of them wouldn't be played now. Twitter would melt down, but anyway.
yeah.
So basically, their launch lineup may not be the best launch.
Yeah, look, yeah, I think, look, when it's all said and done, like, I want it to be said that like the main reason I want Sony to succeed is because then Phil Spencer keeps trying. Like I want them to be at least reasonably strong because then Microsoft have to try hard to keep your dollars, right? That's the main reason I want to be strong. I've never been a big fan of the way they run things. I've never been a big fan of a lot of the things that they do, right? Like I say, PS4 to me was the exception. House and Layden played that brilliantly. They deserve all the credit in the world for it. The main thing that gets to me is I think they're going down a dangerous path. I think the deal with Tencent and the deal with Epic, the censorship. So, have you ever heard of the Galgun franchise? If you hang around Luke and Co, you might have heard of Galgun, and it's
No,
basically
not
like
really.
a bunch
No.
of teenage anime girls shoot at each other, and the more they hit each other, the more their
Well,
clothes come
Luke's into
off.
that. No way.
Crazy, right?
Out of character.
Um, I know, and so that's Galgun, right? And that used to be
Actually, I'm
Vita.
gonna
I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one on Vita. I'm pretty sure there was definitely one on PS4, PS5, and now late stage PS4. The new one launches on Xbox, Steam, Nintendo Switch. No PS4, no PS4 copy.
Switch is the degenerate console now, as you
It is,
said.
and I've said this for a long time. It is the hentai console. It's the weirdo console.
Well,
But
my daughter
because
plays dating simulators on the
and
Switch.
there is a lot of them. There's a lot of otome games, a lot of visual novels, and all that kind of stuff.
I can't tell if they're
Um,
boys or girls. I mean, I'm looking at the
I mean
games. And what's
I think
going
that's
on?
the appeal. I'm not gonna lie. That's the Fujo appeal.
Some have got
Um,
ears. What's going on? A little
look,
vampire teeth and
yeah.
hell,
Welcome,
I'm old.
welcome to raising a teenage girl.
If the boy was looking at that, I'd go, man, you're a bit pervy with the girl. I'm just going, what the hell?
Yeah. What is this? But yeah, like
Understand.
I think to me that is the main thing that concerns me is they're making all of these old-fashioned Sony decisions, and I don't I don't know if that's where the gaming industry is anymore. They can keep selling it as a generational thing. They can keep selling it as you know, because everyone in our Discord was going, oh, I don't see much of a future for the Series S, and I'm like, it doesn't matter. Let's say it gets 2 or 3 years and it just
Hmm.
becomes your secondary Xbox, and let's say Project xCloud becomes a thing and you stream it from your main Xbox in your lounge room, like it will have done its job until such point as it can't do its job anymore. It will act as that transitional barrier between the two. And they don't care about muddying their generations. They couldn't give a stuff. They do need to work on their naming conventions because the amount of people, like
Oh yeah, yeah,
Amazon sales of Xbox One X went up 750%
yeah. I was going to get to
over.
that.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I stole your thunder there, but yeah.
No, there's going to be some very sad people, but keep going. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's oh boy.
And so I feel like, you know, people worry about the future of the Series S. I worry just like, I don't like, once Sony's past this, like they've got a few good games coming and they teased it God of War, which was smart. They needed to do that. They needed to show people that 2021 they had big things coming. But then like 2 weeks later, Nintendo did a Nintendo Direct that has two Monster Hunters and a Disgaea, and it's like, cool, there's a Japanese audience sorted. Like, who buys a
Mm.
PlayStation now? Like, you know, if you're a Monster Hunter fan, you're just gonna go, cool. That's a Switch confirmed. You know, like
Well,
especially if they do a special edition Switch, double confirm it. They will fly out the door if they do a fucking special edition Switch.
Well, I can tell you what, I actually suspect though that the Sony doesn't care because I'm gonna remember we were talking ages ago about doing a segment,
Mm,
not the target audience, which
yeah.
is still, and I actually reckon I'm gonna because I've been big on this for a while, and I wrote a thing on the New Game Plus website, newgameplus.tv, about I think their eyes are on China, and I
Yes.
don't think
For
their
sure.
eyes are on Japan or the US because
Mm-hmm.
the Chinese market is so big and so ready to be like captured, whatever. I don't know what the
Sold to,
best
yeah.
term. Yeah, I actually reckon that all their moves, and because China's got their strict censorship policies as far as
Yep.
moral content on games,
Yep.
and as I wrote in the piece, people are going, oh, but it's all SJWs and that. It's not. It's Sony's like moral police department thing. I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah.
it's in the article I wrote where basically you have to get approved by them, so you can't have these things that people complain about SJW influence, but it's
You can't have
really
skeletons, you can't have blood, you can't have ghosts because it's
you can't have
ancestors, you can't have
scantily clad
sexual
women.
content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's lots of weird, like Dota's had to deal with this for a while. Like Dota, you know, some of the heroes are skeletons, or they're, you know, all the girls with like a bit of cleavage showing will then suddenly have a piece of fabric coming across the top, or you know,
yeah,
so certain icons have to have skulls removed, all that kind of stuff.
this is all for China, though. It's not
Mm.
for Californian social justice warriors, and I'm
Yep.
sure they're pretty happy. I'm sure that because that
Yeah.
puritanism that's always existed in the US in one form or another.
Yeah.
Um, but it's all for China. It's all to get past their moral sort of
Correct. Yeah.
standards thing. And it's a gamble. And as much as I've said before, I think Sony's gone as a console maker, but I'll hedge that in saying a big hedge, by the way. If they nail the Chinese market and they get there before Microsoft and Nintendo instead of, then they will be the biggest video game
Yeah.
company around by a long way. But they won't have to sell a single console or game to America or Australia or England.
Yep.
The
Yeah.
market's big in China.
That's a fair statement to make, and I think this is the thing. Like, you know, we like to view these people with the idea that they're making, you know, the storytelling experiences because they want to make these storytelling experiences. But that's true, and that's not true. And like, not even of people like Phil Spencer and stuff. Sure, individual devs might, sure, individual producers might, but what the grand scheme of Sony is to make money. The grand scheme of Nintendo is to make money. And you know, this kind of goes back to the, you know, you bring up China. That's the cultural difference there. Is the reason Gashapon games are fine over there is the two pronged element of luck being a part of the culture / prosperity narrative that really infiltrates a lot of Chinese culture. You are rich because you deserve to be rich, and the advantage that you have in a game should come from the fact that you are rich and therefore you can buy your way into it. So that's one element of it. But like, they don't have this attachment to gaming as a storytelling medium. They just don't. You know, that era, that PS1, you know, Super Nintendo, Dreamcast era was all driven by RPGs because they wanted value. Like, people started wanting value for money. They started wanting these storytelling games because
Yeah.
it's not like arcades. You weren't extracting value from them, you know, 20 cents at a time, you know, for one round of whatever game you were playing. You were trying to get them to pay $100 up front as a general rule, to play X game, and at that point, that was what people wanted. That was what was going to get you 40 hours of gameplay. Was yeah, you got to grind through Final Fantasy VII to get to X, Y, Z. And China never had that. China's never had that particular thing. Though it must be said that culture moves faster than it used to, and there are some Chinese devs actually really going out of their way to make some
Oh no,
interesting games. Like
yeah,
yeah, for sure. But
no
I
doubt.
agree with you in the sense that Sony, it's that cynical push in, and if it pays off, you're absolutely right. I think if it pays off, they'd suddenly become potentially the biggest publisher in the world
Yeah.
without even lifting a finger in the West.
Look, it's an enormous gamble, and they have other business areas where they can leverage off that. But that's where the decisions, are made for. People probably aren't aware that game consoles were banned in China up until 2015.
Yes.
So when
Yep.
you talk about the growing up with RPGs and even arcade, most of them didn't. I mean, there's probably black market ones and that, but the bulk of the Chinese population just didn't grow up with the same expectations we have. So everything they've
And
seen,
they grow up with PC competitive games like Dota and games like this. I mean,
or
Dota's
mobile,
huge in China for a reason. Yeah, MOBAs and stuff like that.
and some
Absolutely.
of the predatory habits of mobile games to them are
Yeah.
normal because they were there from day one. So,
Yes.
and I'm not making a value judgment or anything on that. I'm just saying that that's their market. That's how it's grown up. Our market grew up different. But there's a lot of money there, and I think there's 600 million Chinese gamers now, and I think a large percentage of them spend a couple $100 a year on costumes for characters because that's how they like to bling things up. And you'll notice most games now have a large component which is costumes. I think all the decisions are made for there. Now, whether it works for Sony or not, that's another question because I think they're playing in a pond that's there are a lot of other factors involved. But if it works, then yeah, Microsoft might as well be like the corner store in size. So that's
yeah.
so, anyway, now let's talk. One Microsoft one. You got anything you need to follow on that?
No. I think we've covered all the stuff we want to do. We should wrap up soon anyway. So yeah.
All right, a couple of quick ones I'll go through quickly. The Xbox Series X. I really hate the naming. Microsoft, there's one thing you really fucked up with console around is the naming. The Series X expansion cards. Now they're 1 terabyte mini hard drives that plug into the little slots in the front, a bit like the old PlayStation 1 memory cards. Remember those? They were cool as. They're like them, a little bit longer. $359 Australian for 1 terabyte card. Now that at the start, that's pretty absurd. Now the 1S comes with 512 meg.
Yes.
And the 1X
gig.
Oh, sorry,
gig. Calm down, Grandpa. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a Commodore 64X. The Series X comes with 1 terabyte. The cards are 1 terabyte. Now, old games, and when I say old games, anything that's not specifically made for the Series S/X is they've done like Tesla.
Okay, let me.
They've done like Elon Musk. Elon Musk said he named his cars S3 X3.
I specifically, yeah.
Go. What were you saying? I'm just
like when I abbreviate it, I call it like capital S, small e X, and then when it's Series S, I go capital S, small e S. And that's just what we do in our Discord.
I'm just right because I'm older.
Yeah. To your point, so yes, if it's an Xbone 360 or normal Xbox game, you can just plug in a USB 3 hard drive into your Xbox, and it will play them off them like it does currently with the Xbox One.
Yep.
You can store Series X games on those hard drives, but to play it, you would need to transfer it to the system memory.
So
you know what I mean?
It's like the Wii and the SD card. Remember the Wii used to have an SD card? Store them on SD card, always loaded them into the Wii to run.
Correct.
Yeah. Look, I think
that is how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, the 512 meg or the 1 terabyte's not going to be a big problem early because you won't be loading the drive up that much, and you can get an external drive for your Xbox One games, your 360 games, and so on. And hopefully the expansion cards come down significantly from $359 by the time everyone's hard drives fill up. Otherwise, that's going to be a really hard sell.
Well, that's like that again. You want to talk about one of the bad cues they took from Sony? That is some PS Vita memory card prices right there. Like that is ludicrous.
It is, and it's a dumb decision. I mean, it's almost the cost of another Xbox just to buy
Yeah.
the card.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so hopefully they come down. That's a bad one. So naming and the expansion cards, Microsoft, that's where you have dropped the ball. You couldn't do everything perfect. Well done. But yeah, so $359 for a 1 terabyte, effectively a little PlayStation memory card.
Yeah. Yep. Just
Yeah,
plugs in and yeah, because it's the only thing that's got the speed of it. So it'll be interesting because I don't know what PlayStation plans to do with expanding their memory. Because obviously previously the one thing that Sony have done, pretty right by consumers, I'll pay is that PS3 and PS4 you could just take a laptop hard drive and unscrew the back of your PS4 and just put them in, and there was no problems. It was fine. PS3 you could put an SSD, or even PS4 you could put SSD and make it run like load a little bit faster and stuff like that. But yeah, it is. That was always something that Sony did, and obviously Region 3 are the two things that they kind of, I don't want to say pioneered, but really did push hard. So yeah.
Do you reckon the hard drive thing from the Xbox was a late thing in response to the fast hard drive spouting by Sony?
I wonder, but they always had the like they always had that kind of fast speed, but it was Sony who doubled down and added that extra bit on top of it and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, push,
yeah.
but those are external memory cards. Because even a terabyte, I mean, there's going to be a point where you're going to need a couple of them. It's I don't see it as an ideal storage system. I'd rather be able to chuck a 4 terabyte drive inside the machine. Just seems, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that one. That's one decision I think they got wrong. Anyway, next one. Mass Effect Trilogy is coming, apparently remastered, which is good because you can be bored all over again and just wander around the Citadel going, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? Other than just make smart-ass answers if you're the guy that pilots that spaceship that looks pretty cool. But so Mass Effect Trilogy remastered. And then we can have another round of people complaining about the ending. Looking forward to that. We're looking at PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. Unless 5 or... Why would you remaster it, not have it on 5 or Series?
I think it was. I don't know. I don't think it's just easy money. You know what I mean? Last chance to use the Unreal Engine for that past stuff and gauge your response. And then if it does well, you can always spend another 6 months upgrading it to thing. And then, we've rebooted Mass Effect, guys. What's Andromeda? You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, let's not talk about Andromeda. Although I'd like them if they redo it and they're going to upgrade the graphics, please upgrade the combat in the first one.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Cyberpunk 2077 has a shorter campaign because of Witcher 3. Basically, hardly anyone finished Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I'm one of them, so I take some blame for this. Now, but I think I'm going to read between the lines here and say it's a shorter campaign, but can we expect DLC to add stuff? Or maybe the story is just shorter and I've got no problem with the story.
Yeah, look, it is a good question.
Yeah, and how much shorter? I mean, I didn't think they said how much shorter. Anyway, I don't know how long the story for Witcher 3 was. I know people loved it.
It was 40 odd hours from memory. And it is funny that they say that obviously they're dropping it down because not a lot of people finish the main quest of Witcher, and Witcher was more compelling than say a Skyrim, like definitely in say a Skyrim or whatever, who finished the main story, and it was so short to begin with, like who bothered finishing the main story. But I think with Witcher,
Fuzz Road. Sorry.
In those open world games, gamers are kind of taught to just do all the side quests and get lost in the world and all that. And I guess in Witcher, because it's so well written, it did come back to the story, which in and of itself weaves a real narrative. It's the same with New Vegas. Like the first time I played New Vegas for 120 hours, I don't think I did more than 2 or 3 main story missions. And I think that's the kind of game that they're saying, we can see the inspiration there, but like I don't know. Like I said, I think it's a good question whether it's a good call because like, I'm not convinced that when it's CD Projekt Red doing it, that it's a good idea. Just because that's not necessarily the kind of game they make, if that makes sense.
I don't think it'll matter with the shorter campaign because I think the first 40 hours of when people get on it, people are going to be customizing their genitals and uploading it. So it's going to be some HP Lovecraft style action.
Yeah.
Department. So as soon as people notice that, they're probably going to be using up most of their time just experimenting. So,
yeah.
What else we got? Okay, now VR. We spoke about VR last year, and I was pretty convinced VR was dead. And then my wife went out and bought one. So
What?
see what happened was my kids were like, all their friends, some of their friends had them, and then they've gone, oh, we need an Oculus Quest. I don't know if you know about the Oculus Quest. It's the one that's standalone, so no
Yeah, it's
piece.
the wireless one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually pretty good. Although I've only really been playing Angry Birds and Shooty Skies on it.
Right.
And for Ninja, but it's but yeah, no, the kids were going, oh, well, we should get a thing, and we were in lockdown. And my wife's just gone, I added a Oculus Quest to the Amazon cart. Can you just pay for it and order it? I go, what? So now there's not. So it's actually, I was surprised how it has come. It's not. The graphics is still it's good, but I was surprised how it was a lot better than I expected. But Oculus Quest 2 has been announced, so there's a new one coming. So VR ain't dead yet. That's where I'm going with that. If you like, the games are like $20 to $40 range, so it's not a cheap thing not a cheap hobby if you're used to Game Pass or playing Angry Birds on your phone, for example. But it's quite an experience, and like I said, not dead yet. Oculus is still making new models, so bit of a surprise. And I've played with one. They're pretty neat. But don't know if I would have bought it.
Yeah, so look, yeah.
My wife earns her own money; she can do what she wants. Here's one for Dan. Sega teases a new Virtual Fighter game to celebrate this.
Yeah, we've had this conversation. Yeah, we've had a conversation a lot between us. Does it mean a new Virtual Fighter game? Does it just mean they're doing a tournament of VF5? They've been very deliberately vague, and yeah.
Well, actually, Dan calls it the beautiful game. That's Dan from Catch Warriors. A reference to soccer being called the beautiful game, which is actually beautiful, meaning I think in some European language, boring.
Yeah.
But VF5 they call it the beautiful game. It'd be interesting to see what they have got there. It says Virtual Fighter Esports, the thing I'm looking at here. So but still, it's good to see Virtual Fighter is still kicking around as a series, because it's always been my favorite fighting series, even though I'm shit at it. It's always the one I actually enjoy playing. Unlike Tekken, that I just never really took to.
Yeah. I look at the same. I've never been a big Tekken fan, but look, it's been an interesting few years for fighters, and I think it was funny because there was such a resurgence of fighters, especially from Street Fighter 4, and then I don't know. We've just come back down there. We've just come back down the other end of it.
Hey, I'm doing better than this, and I'm the old man.
Yeah, I know, right? God damn.
Yeah, actually, I'm very disappointed though that Sega has announced anniversary of Virtual Fighter Kids, which is the best fighting game. And I don't know why Couch Warriors won't answer my emails when I ask it to be added to the roster. Very disappointed in that, guys. So Virtual Fighter Kids is the best fighting game ever. So and Seffi will be commenting under this, agreeing it's a good game. What's the last one? I've got one more. Rayman creator Michael Ansel announces his retirement. Now, I've probably said that wrong because it's a French name, Michel Ansel. How do you say that?
Yeah, anyway. Michel Ansel.
Okay, Michel Ansel. Excuse my boganness for not getting it right. He's basically credited with creating Rayman as a series, which when Rayman originally appeared was pretty good and still good, actually. Rayman Legends, or one of those, pick up if you can. It's got a really good version of like a soccer or football sort of game in it, which you can play on your own. So if you see it cheap, it's worth picking up just for that. And he also created one of the best games ever made, Beyond Good and Evil, which was I think a little bit of a sales disaster.
Yeah. Very famous, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Spec Ops: The Line, which didn't really jump out of the blocks and excite everybody, but just when people actually
anyone who it was a critical darling, like, for all the shit people give journos, they called it early that it was a fantastic game. It was just that it came out bad marketing, bad everything.
Well, it was amazing Beyond Good and Evil because it didn't have shooting as its main focus. You're actually a journalist. This is in a fantasy world, obviously, where you're a journalist and you run around, you take photos of things to try and expose a government conspiracy. A game that I reckon should be a real genre right now, because if you want to make games about people exposing government conspiracies, we are living in the right time in history for that. there's demand and there is subject matter everywhere. But yeah, Beyond Good and Evil. If anyone hasn't checked it out, check it out. But yeah, the creator of that has decided to retire. He said that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is with an independent team and it's going to be still made. I'm really worried about Beyond Good and Evil 2. From what I've seen, it looks like garbage, but I really, really hope I'm wrong. But so far, play the first one. Yeah, I know. You've seen the previews of Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Yeah, it feels confused even watching like where's the tie? Like there has to be some kind of tie-in that I'm missing. Like I don't even know when it's set. Like I don't know. When I've seen the trailers, I don't know what I'm looking at, and that's not good for marketing hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like yeah.
Looks like a Hollywood style sequence of cool shots.
Yeah.
They've tried to then tie in all together. Yeah, look, I'm not 100% convinced. I think it is really bad. But I just think the idea of Beyond Good and Evil, like I said, you're a journalist just sneaking around, taking photographs, exposing big government conspiracy. It's just the world is crying out for that as a genre now. So I really. Beyond Good and anyone who hasn't played it, it's really good. It's a game where we keep saying we should make games that aren't just shooting people, and that's one of them. It's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, cool. Well, I'm at the end of it. Have you got anything that you need to?
We're running super late, so let's
You're
just
about
get
to
it
fall
done.
asleep, so I'll let you sleep. Anyway, thanks for anyone for listening. Don't forget to catch the normal show podcast, which will go up on iTunes and everything. We go to newgameplus.tv for details about that. All our old stuff's there, newgameplus.tv. New Game Plus TV, all one word, on every social media network you can think of to catch up with the crew. Jump on, have a chat, send us a message. We love that sort of stuff. It just makes
we've had a recent influx of people into the Discord as well. So yeah, it's been good to have a few more people talking around, and still a few more cool things to come very soon. And TV's still happening if you watch it on TV.
Yeah, Jack's doing that now, and Jack. Look, I don't know. I always say Jack's a star. I'll sound like a broken record reference that young people won't understand. But there you go. So Jack's a star. Check out the TV show. Go to newgameplus.tv. That's where you can find the starting point for everything. Just check out everything we've got there. Thanks for the podcast again, Jason. And we'll be back again next week.